And Bly, let's see what happens as we start in the bottom right-hand side. Red Zerg is Bly. Taking on the Blue Terran, FanTaSy, in the top left-hand side. So, setting this up, getting this rolling, and seeing what's going to happen. As we go into our first game of a TvZ series, I mean, this has some potential to be pretty fun. Refinery is going to be finishing up. A couple of workers jumping in there. Don't know what to expect from Bly in this series, because I feel like Slowly Falling said it best in the Twitch chat, actually. Haven't really seen Bly play any kind of crazy games lately, or crazy builds, and you have to agree, he's been playing like pretty regular, kind of macro focused. It's definitely being like, Bly's just definitely going through one of those stages where he decides not to just cheese every game. And that's what, that's kind of the crazy thing about Bly. Someday he will just go proxy hatch 1, 2, 3 games in a row, boom, boom, boom. The next, maybe not day to day, but like week by week, then 1 week is just like, you know what? I'm going to play super late game. I remember it happened one time, Bly versus Probe in a WCS event, I want to say, that I was casting, or something. It was some event, and they played like 40-minute games back to back, because Bly was just like, you know what? I'm done cheesing. I'm just going to go macro, macro, macro. So, yeah. Getting this set up, and just going to be seeing the drone is going to take quite a bit of damage there. Is going to fall, so FanTaSy is able to pick that off. Third CC already on the way from FanTaSy, so quite nice to be able to get a third CC up and running, and obviously keep the third hatch from Bly. A little bit belated now. Bly is no stranger to playing 2-base ZVT. He is absolutely a lover of going in towards the lair and the spire, etc. So, always very interesting, as he's definitely not afraid to kind of go into that. Now, obviously, you still want a third hatchery up and running, but again, if he has to delay it a little bit, he'll know some good ways to kind of put used to that gas that he's got kind of stacked up and so on, and all the rest of it. So, intrigued to see where this goes. And as we do see the Reaper popping down to the low ground, as we're going to be seeing. Just running by here, having a little bit of a look to see what's going on. What's up, Pizza Pat? My favorite, definitely not Pizza Cat, as we do see the Queen's able to get the SV and the Reaper there. So actually a nice little pick-off. Coming in with the Twitch Prime sub for 2 months. Thank you so much for the Twitch Prime. Get some love for the chat for the Twitch Prime sub. Much appreciated. As we do see the Command Center about to finish up in that main. So again, FanTaSy going to be on a nice, strong economy early in this. Now, FanTaSy, if you guys didn't watch FanTaSy vs. Solar, our YouTube Showdown series #1 on the YouTube, you need to go check that out. If you like FanTaSy, if you like TvZ, FanTaSy Solar was a crazy series. It's pretty funny. So it's just kind of crazy how great that series was. But I'm gonna give you guys a bit of a spoiler, and it's just because of how FanTaSy's been playing lately. FanTaSy's been playing a lot of like switches, so from bio into mech, and even from mech into switch into bio. So he's been playing a lot of kind of like compositional switches to try and get get his opponent on a worse composition than they'd like to be on. I mean, FanTaSy's TvZ is always very fun to watch and very fun to see how it plays out. So I'm quite excited to see how this goes. We do see a Nidus network coming in on the natural expansion. Supply is going to get a little bit aggressive here, at least. We'll see how much he gets done. 40 drones, roaches, and queens, all that's in production at the moment. A couple more overlords get out of what is currently a supply block, which is quite harsh for him. So now just we're going to finish in a moment or two. A couple of Hellions coming down through the center of the map. The Viking of FanTaSy is wandering around a little bit as well, just again seeing what's going on here. There's a couple of engineering bays building up from FanTaSy as part of this wall-off as well, so engineering base at the front. Nidus Worm is dropping down into this main base, so getting that main base set up to roll, and 12 more roaches on the way out here from Bly. So getting those roaches out, jumping them in towards the Nidus network, and Well, meanwhile, Queens and Roaches already jumping out of this main base, so here we go. FanTaSy has got a siege tank up, a second one on the way. As the Hellions are on their way back in as well. Marines have stim too. That's also a big part of being able to defend this. Remember, FanTaSy has 3 CCs, so building up from worker losses is very, very possible for him. So you can definitely afford to lose a few workers, but pulling them away here. Good job so far. This next tank sieges up. SCVs will be pulled in to keep the Roaches at bay. Marines are getting caught on these Hellions. 14 SCVs down. That pretty much equals up the worker count so far. And with these stim Marines, those Roaches are just going to disappear. Then the Queens, he's going to be in some trouble. I mean, SCV is still chasing in. I guess these Marines haven't already used the stim. Are kind of low on HP now, so has to be careful. 2 tanks in range now, so that's a lot of damage being done. Zergling's pulling out of this Nidus on the left, which try and get on a tank, but the Marines are good to defend that. It's just a few Marines left against these couple of Queens. 12 Roaches in production. A Dropper Lord being made. Intrigued to see what Bly does with a Dropper Lord, actually. In what way do you necessarily need a Dropper Lord in this scenario? You kind of don't, really. Multiple Niduses here, so even if one dies, Bly will have another to kind of work with. Puts this tank just behind the starboard again, choking up this area, makes it harder to jump on top of the siege tank, of course. A third siege tank. I mean, this really should be the beginning of the end of this attack from Bly. Bly's done enough to start, and he is starting to drone, so he's definitely able to start droning behind this quite effectively, I would say, as these Roaches are going to try and get on this tank on the right side. FanTaSy stims over to defend it. Good target fire with the Marines. Just again, always kind of doing the right things to keep the tanks alive, and the more tanks you save, the better kind of follow-up pushes, etc. can be, and obviously the better your continued defense is. And now Nidus in the natural, though. FanTaSy is down to 27 SCV, so he's really struggling here to keep workers alive. But again, with a 3rd CC and an upgrade advantage, FanTaSy can still play this game out and be in a pretty decent position all said and done. So this isn't over just yet, as the tank fire will pick away at this Nidus. That will go down. Marines are going to go back up in towards the main here, as we have Roaches and Queens trying to do a bit more as well. Orbital Command taking some damage. A couple more Roaches popping out. SCVs long distance mining. One more Roaches continuing to come on through there, as we will see the siege tank sieging. And, well, Roaches and Queens going to continue to be in some trouble. Tank will fall. More Marines popping out as well. And we're going to see again the SCVs just mining away, but still taking damage. FanTaSy is still struggling to deal with this. I mean, just Bly being extremely frustrating. When I said he made a few extra drones, he really did only make a couple. And then continued with the other production. This Nidus network doesn't even go down. And honestly, the Roach count is kind of low in this main base. FanTaSy's about to have 1-1, which goes a long way towards helping these Marines take down those Roaches and Queens that little bit faster as well. And this network goes down again. Roaches continue to press forwards. There's a Nidus in the natural now that comes back into play, and as FanTaSy finally gets his 1-1 upgrades, he is down 20 workers. And Bly is really making a challenge of this, isn't he? FanTaSy still has a very good tank count. I mean, he's on 3 tanks, which is... He lost 1 throughout all of this. I mean, it's been very good and very efficient from FanTaSy. 5,000 to 6,500 resources lost. That's worth keeping in mind, because again, it means that even though FanTaSy isn't mining as much, he's able to stay in the game competitively because of that. And if he can just buy himself a few moments here, he'd actually be able to very effectively go in towards a 3CC setup and rebuild the worker count. It's not like Bly is out of reach in terms of worker count at the moment. This Nidus, by the way, on top of this siege tank. That's going to be a dead tank pretty much. Okay, FanTaSy sieges it, pulls it back. Contaminate does slow down tank production here as well. Now they jump into the main base. I mean, tanks are still in this main base, so it feels like this is the easier position for FanTaSy to defend, but the Roaches get right on top of that siege tank. This contamination still off there in that factory. Finally able to continue the tank production. Again, 1-1 upgrades are now in play, but these Marines, they've got to be careful. They can't overstim too often and so on and so forth. I love that Bly continues to throw down the Nidus networks, knowing that if he loses one of these Niduses, he then has another to run back to keep those Roaches and Ravages alive. However, this is bad. Bly went to the right-hand side. He's got no Nidus there, so actually, FanTaSy realizes the opportunity to kill off pretty much everything that remains. Finally, FanTaSy cleans up 10 minutes in. A few more Roaches, but this should be the end of it, actually. This Nidus will go down, another one in the natural, but this time FanTaSy's already moving towards the natural before the Nidus is up and popping out units, and that's a big difference to what we have seen before now. Some Marines come over, this Nidus network denied. 3 overlords still just on the way up. Again, just seeing the orbital commands now resetting themselves. The 3rd CC has been... How many workers were lost here overall? 53 SCVs. FanTaSy is obviously going to go back into that worker production now. This is where this game gets interesting. Bly is still making Roach Queen with no upgrades. And FanTaSy is obviously rebuilding that worker count. His army count's really getting better too. Drops are going to be very difficult for Bly to deal with because FanTaSy is going to be able to... There's no kind of hydras, there's nothing to really shut down drops. There's no Mutalisks either. Roach play is obviously pretty slow in general too, so the drops have a lot of potential to get some counter damage here. He's continuing to unload there on the bottom side. We're going to be seeing this Knight as well. I'm going to finish up in a moment or two. A lot of Roaches there. There's that Knight is in the main. Roach is popping out. Where's FanTaSy's defense? Oh, out in the middle of the map. Oh no! Ah, FanTaSy, I mean, he should have had vision in his main, right? He should have left something. It's Bly for crying. I mean, FanTaSy's just expecting Bly to stop making units, I think, and be droning, but not the case at all, as he has to come back here and siege up. I mean, that's 14 more SCVs, so now FanTaSy, well, he was on his way back in terms of worker count, was starting to get there, but he's kind of going to lose that now, as we're going to be seeing this orbital command actually burning down as well if he's not careful. Obviously can lift it up, but needs to get SCVs there to repair it too eventually. Hey, if the Roaches get another volley off, it's going to get very low. Tank's trying to siege up very far forward, but maybe FanTaSy's going to lose a bit too much here. The Roach count's quite high, and again, FanTaSy just out of position initially. Will start to do some damage in this main base. Roaches popping out will not be in high enough numbers to really compete here. But FanTaSy's losing pretty much everything at home, and he doesn't really have the production to ever clean up those Roaches. So while he cleans up this lair, it looks like Bly's going to do enough. Now FanTaSy is brought down to devastating amounts of work. There's one SCV left. There's the one left. Oh my god, there's one SCV. He's going to go running for it. FanTaSy maybe knows that he could perhaps force a draw. He could perhaps force a draw if he kills all of the economy and Bly doesn't have like a lair up, or doesn't have a spire up. But he's still mining over on this natural, so FanTaSy's kind of flying home, and that one SCV, I mean, yeah, that's the problem. I mean, obviously Bly just has enough units back at home. He's got the Nidus and the natural too, which means it's the safest place for it, and the units were able to get back over here. Reinforcements coming in, so FanTaSy couldn't just continue fighting. I mean, now he's going to unload and fight against these few Roaches, but you can just see the numbers are dropping thin for FanTaSy, and it really looks like Bly is going to end up grabbing this game number one. After this best of 5, Nidus play to the max. Just never stopped with it, just went again and again and again and again until he was able to break this down. Roaches here now picking away at the factory, the barracks. Another SCV going down as well, as we're going to be seeing the few barracks in the starport lifting up and going elsewhere. We are just going to be seeing those medevacs here from FanTaSy heading down to the bottom right hand side. Roaches continue to pick away at some more of these reactors. So reactors continue to drop, and again, just going to be seeing a huge drop here from FanTaSy down at the bottom right. Lings, Roaches, Lings all setting up at the moment, as we're going to be seeing this group of units. Just has to defend. I mean, FanTaSy is flying orbitals around. He's going to find a way to drop in, but again, all Bly has to do is hold on, keep this natural mining, and he cannot lose this game. FanTaSy knows he has to fight, which is why he doesn't just pick up and go elsewhere, and that's GG. Bly finds game number 1. The bounties we did earlier in the year allowed us to double the prize pool of this event, so stick around, leave the stream on in the background or something. It helps us a lot if you can do that, as we kick off now into game number 2 of this best of 5. Up 1-0 in the bottom right hand side, our red Zerg player. Give it up if you're cheering on Bly. Up against the blue Terran in the top left hand side, FanTaSy, in game number 2 of this series. So, second map, getting this ready to roll. What's up, Little Rat in the chat says, "What do you like your casting a lot? Keep it up." Thank you so much. Glad you're enjoying. Thank you for the kind words. Thanks for dropping in and enjoying the stream. SCV is just continuing out of the command center here as we set up on Acropolis. Generally a pretty decent Zerg map. Obviously nice and large, a good one to kind of get bases up, and one that's just hard for the Terran to find pushes into, and rally pushes especially into bases. And typically you would expect to see mech here from the Terran players. This is probably the most anti-bio map we have in the map pool at the moment, so definitely expecting to see kind of mech coming out as the choice from FanTaSy would be kind of the expected go-to. As this SCV continues down to the bottom right-hand side. So SCV wandering down at the bottom. Overlord here from Bly. He's going to head up the right side as well, and just going to be seeing a couple of queens, a few zerglings continuing out from Bly at the moment as well. So setting that up still, getting that continuing to go, and Command Center still on the way up on the natural expansion, about halfway done there, as we are going to be seeing this Reaper heading out to the bottom right side of the map. Factory starting up from FanTaSy here, so again that factory up and rolling as the Marine going to start nibbling its way through this Overlord, so dealing some damage, but it will get to the high ground, keeps it safe for the moment, of course, no real surprises there, as we would expect. Couple of Zerglings coming around the top. SCV being chased is getting pretty low. Oh my god, stop moving and Bly turn the Zergling away. The second SCV survives as well. Some fun little bits of micro at the start of this one, as we will see the lad dropping down from Bly as well here in the main base. Getting that up and running. Reaper around the right hand side. That's about halfway done. Link speed is about to kick in as we see 6 more Zerglings in production. I mean, just making sure you can help shut down this Reaper, etc. Multiple Queens here, actually. FanTaSy will not get out with that Reaper, but he did scout the fast lair, so he gets some information already. This was, what, 1 gas? Okay, he's already gone up into multiple gases. It is 2 bases from Bly. He had a drone here denied and morphed into an extractor instead. Probably going to see a Spire then. It's kind of Bly's, what he likes to go to when he plays 2-base lair. So he's going to build a Spire and go into some pretty fast Mutalisks and try and take map control and deal some damage. Problem with the 2-base Mutalisk is you really need to deal some damage because you're going to be behind on upgrades and you're going to be very late on 3rd base. So your economy is late and your upgrades are late because you're teching into Mutalisks early. So if you don't do damage with those Mutalisks, you will quite quickly start to find yourself in a bit of a troubling position when it comes to trying to shut that down. So definitely a little bit concerning here, as we do see this Viking coming over, and Overlord of Bly taking quite a few shots of damage. Viking is going to get the kill there, so Overlord falls down dead. Up on the top we do see SCVs doing a bit of repairing on the Hellions there. The Viking coming up top as well, going to be picking its way through that Overlord. So Overlord trying to morph into an Overseer is going to get taken down. Overseer gets popped, Bly hits a supply block, and a scan in the natural expansion, just seeing what's going on there too. A couple of Queens gathering up at the front. 3rd hatchery is just over halfway done. Supply will finish that shortly, but it's the Mutalisks they're about to take to the stage. That will be very interesting to see what they can get done. Again, it's really for Bly just trying to get enough done out of this, but in FanTaSy is first of all playing Bio, so you will have Marine production. And he's about to have engineering base, so he's going to have the potential to build missile turrets, and those are 2 very key things to keep in mind, because it means he quite naturally has something of a response to this pretty fast Spire, even if he hasn't seen it yet. And you start a missile turret per base right away, and I say per base, and also want to protect the production lines. Actually, I think FanTaSy has a very good read on what is going on here. He's even going to have Stim finished. Again, the timing of this Stim is just nice. I mean, it means he's now going to have that little bit of extra boost against those Mutalisks. Have to be careful, you don't want to overstim your Marines, there's only a few of them, and if you overstim them, they're going to get picked off pretty quickly. And obviously there's no medivacs to heal just yet, so gotta be a bit careful as the Mutas are going to fly in to hit the Hellions initially. 2 Hellions down and flying forwards. The Viking is going to bait Mutalisks in towards a Widowmine shot, and the Viking survives too. Oh my god. Well, that's not a good start from Bly in any way, shape or form. 3 Mutalisks dead already. Comes back in to at least get the Widowmine, but 3 Mutas dead with what? A Widowmine and 2 Hellions killed? That's not an equal trade in any way, shape, or form. And again, Bly's not looking for an equal trade. He's looking for an efficient trade. A trade that's going to keep FanTaSy pinned back and keep FanTaSy busy throughout this series. Bly pulling back again towards the center. A couple more medivacs again on the way here, as the armory will start up from FanTaSy as well behind this natural. Mutas fly in, picking off a Marine. Widowmine burrows on the ramp as well, the Viking. Again, doing some damage to those mutas. The Marines setting up, and just going to be seeing the 1-1 upgrades continue to come through. Combat shield's about to finish up as well. And these Marines still just stimming down the left-hand side of the map as Zerglings from Bly will head out through the center and gather themselves up. And Factory just coming in from FanTaSy on the third base, so getting that roll in here. Armory again about halfway done, and I'm just going to be seeing this mutalist force pushed away up to the top. 21 Banelings morphing in. Bly really looking to go aggressive. You may notice he's got no Evo chambers, so he has no upgrades at all. So Bly is really like all in with this attack. If he doesn't win the game with this, I mean, FanTaSy sees the Banes, he sees how many there are. He's like, yep, I go home, I defend. He's just started up drilling claws. That won't be done just yet. Morphs in the Hellbats, there'll be a good little tanking mechanism against those Banelings. But yeah, Bly is absolutely all in with an upgrade deficit. He's going to be so far behind on upgrades if he doesn't deal pretty serious damage here. So here you go, Bly to start busting forwards. He's got a few Banes coming in the other side, but actually this Widowmine might be able to get those. Oh my god, FanTaSy doesn't know where to split to. The Widowmine saved the day. What amazing connections. Oh my god, the Widowmine's just cleaned up all of the Banelings in an instant. Bly. Wow, there was a group of Banelings here that just went down. I didn't even see how, but they just got destroyed. Man, this is not going well for Bly at all here. Now FanTaSy has an army lead, a worker lead, and an upgrade lead. Need I name more? I mean, there's not much more to name, but that's because it's pretty much every lead you can have. In favor of FanTaSy at the moment, Bly's going to go for round 2, but now he doesn't have anywhere near as many Banelings as he did before. FanTaSy loads a few Marines into a medevac. He will try and drop. Round 2 coming into this here. The first Banes on the left side do nothing. The Widowmine picks off most of the Banes on the right. And while a few Banes do get through here, there's enough Marines to just continue to push this back, and Bly will be held off while FanTaSy again is also setting up that drop. So he's looking to deal some counter damage while he continues to defend, not losing much at all in the process. So this medevac around the right-hand side, 8 Marines inside of it. Muta's coming forwards, and Widowmine. He's taunting that Widowmine. He kind of wants to set it off, but he isn't going to find a chance. He wanted to say set off. He wanted to pick it off, sorry. Now it's going to get set off, and that's a dead back. I mean, what was that? Was that meant to achieve something? He just gave up a Mutalist. He didn't even get the Widowmine kill because it has drilling claws. I feel like Bly is messing up a little bit at the moment and not having the greatest moment or two here in this second map. FanTaSy looking good at the moment to potentially come through and to tie this up here. Marines unloading in the top right-hand side. 1-1 melee upgrade still on the way out. Burrow about halfway done. Banelings and Lings continuing up as well. All of these units going to set up in the center between the bases. New Attacks Carapace coming up on the third base as well, so getting that going. +1 vehicle plating on the armory. And again, Mutalisks coming back around up this top side. FanTaSy going to be pressing down the bottom. I mean, we're at the point where FanTaSy is almost just on the verge of dealing a killing blow. These Zerglings here sacrifice to find out the army is sat there waiting. We still have the difficulty of, this is a difficult map to push on. He's going to put his tank in the very nice high ground position. But I mean, again, numbers should do the job of what numbers do, and that is that, FanTaSy just has so much more. Breaking through here should just be an eventuality. Muta from the right-hand side. Marines picking up a couple more cube tumors here. The Mutalists coming in and getting rid of a medevac or two. Let's drop around the side from FanTaSy. Is going to begin unloading behind this mineral line and actually overloads the initial target. I mean, we're talking about 2-2 against 0-0, so these Zerglings don't stand a chance. Banelings will blow up Marines no matter what, though, so that's a good little something at least. Bly's up to 66 drones, but he took him a while to get there, and again, down almost half the army supply at the moment. He is truly struggling along as a couple of Marines getting whacked into as well. Thor will help to pick off a Baneling. Another Baneling on the top side gets taken down. This hatchery still being picked away at as well. A couple of Zerglings, Banelings still wandering forwards. Widowmine burrows up. Zerglings on the left-hand side continue to fight Marines, and hey, this hatchery's going to go down. So I mean, there goes the fourth base. Bly set up a bit of a surrounder coming from either side, from the bottom right and the top left. I mean, FanTaSy's just playing it slow and steady. Will eventually deal enough damage here. He knows these units over here, so he's going to set up a bit of his own surround. How does it feel, Bly? You guys wanted to flank, you get flanked. All the Balins go down there. I mean, again, nice pickoffs from FanTaSy, good map awareness. Very aware of just what Bly is up to here, right? I mean, just not letting him get away with anything at all. And I mean, Bly's finally on 1-1 upgrades, which means that he's finally able to go and somewhat compete, but he's still down an entire set. So 2-2 against 1-1 is still hugely favorable for FanTaSy. Oh, the burrowed Bane lanes. Didn't even see those coming in. That's a Wardy boom in the chat if I've ever seen one. Bunch of Marines go down, and that does bring FanTaSy down about 15-20 supply, but it's still not enough, right? I mean, FanTaSy still has a humongous lead in this game. And pressing forwards, Bly is truly on the dying edges of this as well, dropping the main base as well. I mean, it feels like the one way Bly could do well is counter-attacking, right? But FanTaSy's leaving a good amount of units at home, so even that doesn't feel like it's got too much potential. Obviously, it's very hard to justify counter-attacking as well, because in this moment in time, Bly's looking at this, he's like, oh my god, I'm under attack here, I'm under attack there, I need all the units I can get to defend this. Obviously, I think at this point you just have to risk the counter-attack, because if you don't risk the counter-attack, you just die anyways. At least with the counter-attack, there's maybe a potential FanTaSy messes up, he gets pulled apart a little bit, he didn't leave units at home. I think that's the one way Bly could try get back into this, but otherwise it's... yeah, we'll kind of see what's continuing to go on. I mean, it's just one of those scenarios where, I mean, a few Balins rolling by now. When I said a run by, I didn't mean 3 Balins. It kind of needs to be a bit more than that. Only 2 SCVs killed, and these Overlords are just taking a beating as well. Wouldn't mind drop over here, kills 17 drones meanwhile, and, well, there's also this push at the front, which FanTaSy is still continuing to slowly pick away at. He's about to be 3-3 against 2-1 upgrades, so back into even more of an upgrade lead. And okay, sorry guys, it's very hard to make this one exciting because it's a bit of a slow moment or two. You can see the Bayouns picking their way through these broodlings. As he goes up to the top side, Wouldn't Mind will go off. Nice first connection on a few of those Zerglings. Oh my god, Mute is even taking a bunch of damage from the Widow Mines. Now they're low. I mean, it's not going to take much to clean them up. A couple more Widow Mines coming over, picked off before they can burrow, but the Thors are coming, and, well, that's goodbye, Mutalisks. It was nice knowing you flying out via missile turrets as well. Bly knows he doesn't want to watch that any longer. FanTaSy takes game. FanTaSy has taken the lead going into Thunderbird. In the bottom right-hand side, our red Zerg player, Bly. Up against the blue Terran on the top left-hand side, FanTaSy. How are we doing in the chat, guys? Is everyone feeling good? Everyone enjoying the games today? Again, this is our last StarCraft series of today, but we will be back with more Summer Championship tomorrow, followed by the Christiana Cup. On Saturday, it'll be China Team League. On Sunday, we're going to miss the China Team League because I'm casting StarCraft Sundays and I have something to do in the morning. And on Monday, we'll be back for China Team League, and we'll cast the Sunday China Team League games we missed as well. So, like, 4 best-of-7s on Monday. And then Tuesday, we have the WardiTV Lenovo Invitational number 2, $1,000 and $2,000-ish of prize products to win. Going to be top-level European competition coming up from next Tuesday. And then we just have more Summer Championship, Masters Cup, and all the rest that we've been casting. Very nice to have a bunch of events that we already have planned out and ready to go. Very, very cool. SCV from FanTaSy is going to start its way out through the center of the map here. So FanTaSy heading down to the bottom side. Reaper about to complete, and as the Reaper completes, we'll see a couple of extra extractors being built. I mean, I've obviously shown you guys this proxy hatchery, haven't mentioned it just yet. This is rich Vespian gas here, so it means that you mine gas very quickly. So Bly looking to take advantage of that. Now FanTaSy sees no hatchery here. Bly is going to build a Roach Run, so he's looking to make a very aggressive Roach Ravager attack. But, off of this position, so there's a lot of reasons this proxy hatchery becomes very useful. Number 1, it's proxied, so the Roaches approach the front a lot faster. Number 2, it's rich Vespian, so you get even more gas than usual, so you can afford even more. This 1 gas is basically the same as mine 2 gases, so he's on like a 3 gas Roach Ravager push, while only mining 2 gases. And when you're on this lower drone count, that's really important, because it's really a significant, you know, if you had to put even more workers on gas, then you have way too much gas and not enough minerals. But with this, you have even more gas for more Ravagers, and still the minerals to build it all as well. What's up, Garbagist, coming in with the 13-month resub. Thank you so much. Do appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. I need some US East Coast tournaments that start at like noon. Well, good news for you. Tomorrow's Christiana Cup will start at exactly noon US East Coast time. So, yeah, we'll be live all the way for your American daytime as well. And the Lenovo Legion Invitational will also be starting at American East Coast at noon time as well. So there you go. Boo, bag of barnyard. You can know there's some stuff coming for you. Well, obviously FanTaSy knows kind of what's coming on. He will initially kind of not expand low ground, build 2 bunkers. CC now in the main as he has his 1-1-1 setup. Obviously Bly's in a bit of a weird spot in terms of where his economy and setup is at, so FanTaSy is not afraid to say, okay, well, me too. You know, I have to lay my CC on the low ground. I'll make sure I'm safe initially. Builds the Cyclone before a Siege Tank. It's just that much safer, and it gives you a little bit more mobility. And denying this high ground vision would be really huge. If he gets this Overlord, oh my god. That is actually so bad for Bly. Losing that Overlord is so bad for Bly, because now he has no high ground vision to Corrosive Bile up here. New Overlord is making its way forwards, but missing out on initial Corrosive Biles that should already be hitting depots and dealing damage. Next Overlord heading up to the top. Excuse me. Barracks is building up another couple of Marines as Command Center builds in the main. Creep spread from Bly. Continue to press forwards here as we will see the Medevac of FanTaSy coming down the left-hand side to see what is next. Medevac coming down the bottom side. Let's see, this group of Marines is going to be dropping down here in a moment or so. A little bit of damage here from FanTaSy on the counter drop. I mean, this is working quite nicely so far. So you'll be seeing an Overlord going down here. I mean, again, Bly just couldn't do anything across the map with the Ravagers because, well, I mean, there's bunkers and no high ground vision. So the counter drop from FanTaSy does quite well to kind of set up over there. He's going to load back up into the Medevac and again, just good pressure. I mean, obviously FanTaSy has this base over here to deal with as well, and Creep is pushing forwards quite quickly because of that. Let's send a Cyclone forwards onto the Creep to have a little bit of a look to see what's going on. So Cyclone pressing forwards, again, a couple of drones absolutely able to go down here. Cleaned out these minerals, by the way, Bly. Interesting stuff. And he gets one drone. Cyclone's then like, cool, I've done enough. Gonna back away for a moment or so. Thank you so much, Bobo Bag of Barnyard, for the 100 bits. Appreciate it, dude. Thank you so much. Liberate on the way up, Stimpack on the way, and again, the barracks setting up for this bio style, but, well, I mean, really, it's just a case of, you know, FanTaSy continue to trade, and he picks up another Ravager here. That's already a pretty good start. I mean, there's no reason he shouldn't be able to defend. He's got so many siege tanks. Now he's about to have Stimpack too. He'll set up a bunker just to make sure, and a second one as well. But, I mean, he's one of those scenarios where you may as well just make sure you don't die, because otherwise you're in a pretty good position based on kind of what's happened here already. Cyclone locks onto a Queen, and again, just pushes it back a little bit. I mean, the creep teamers are annoying here. There's one point could just straight up kill there. Cyclone's... I mean, there's a lot of Ravagers, right? And that's the benefit of the rich Vespine gases. You've seen a lot more Ravagers than you'd usually be able to afford, but even with that, you know, pushing into those siege tanks is expensive because those Ravagers are still 100 gas each. Meanwhile, Liberator here gets 6 kills before being turned away by a Spore Crawler. We have another drop of Marines, this time with Sim heading towards the main base, so very likely that FanTaSy is going to be able to do a bit more damage here once again. So we've seen the combat shields about halfway done as we see the Marines stimming into the main. Queen is going to go down. I mean, again, this entire drone line is just in trouble immediately, right? So FanTaSy doing a lot of damage on the counter here. 9 workers killed. Seeing the Sport Crawler again, a couple more shots going off onto the medevac, and combat shields coming up on the attack lab, and Ravagers continuing back down to the bottom right hand side. Drop play just continues to be very effective from FanTaSy, getting a lot done. Couple corrosive bars, going to miss the medevac. Tried to hit a legendary shot there, doesn't quite happen. Medevac up the right hand side. Thank you so much, Yohasa. How you doing, buddy? 13 months. 1 year's not enough, going for 2 already. Thank you, dude. Appreciate the 13-month resub. We do see creep tumors being cleaned out. Bly gonna go Infestation Pit, I mean, may as well get that up and running. Lost his Rotron, by the way, to that drop just previously. Sorry, bad observing. Infestation Pit, so, I mean, has to go Swamphost, right? He's got a ton of gas to spend. Swamphost are the one thing that kind of makes sense, although I'm pretty sure it's probably not going to make much of a difference. Defending this base is going to be, I feel, almost impossible with the Siege Tank player to cover the Ravagers if they press forwards to try and defend, so Bly has to give up this base, which means he loses this rich Vespian gas. He did pretty much mine these out. I mean, only 900 gas left there. And as Bly pulls those workers back home, he will be able to get back over there. Okay. Interesting, interesting. So going to deliver the rich Vespian back as well very shortly, I'd imagine. So yeah, overall, I mean, loses this base. Bly's now 2 base against 2 base. FanTaSy's building a Raven to help out with some of the creep, I think. More so than anything, that's one of the problems. He's actually building Infestors, Bly. I mean, I kind of like Swarmhost because Swarmhost are that kind of efficient unit that can maybe bring you back from a game where you're not really doing great. Infestors, I guess, a couple of good fungal growths can change it up, but does it do enough is my question. I'm not really sure if it is. Pressing forwards again in every corrosive valves. Not going to do too much. Once again. That's the problem, right? I mean, you get rid of one siege tank, but you're losing, what, multiple Ravagers at a time? That's a hell of a fungal growth, though! Bly gets some really good damage. I was doubting the use of the Infestors, but, well, that's a hell of a way to make the Infestors very effective. However, now he runs into more. I mean, these tanks on the right side, he just lost like another 4 or 5 Ravagers that really didn't need to be lost, and now the Marines even chasing for a moment. My god. +1 attack is going to finish. FanTaSy will have the upgrade lead, 3rd CC building. Bly now starts 1-1, so he'll actually be, I mean, in terms of 1-1, they'll be evenly timed if +1 armor starts next. But obviously +1 attack is done that much sooner, so that is an advantage that FanTaSy holds. Now, Fungal is pretty deadly. What's our resources lost, by the way? 7k to 4.8, so FanTaSy is pretty much winning. The efficiency of that fungal growth didn't change enough. And again, I kind of like the Raven at this point. It's a lot of creep in very weird positions, and so it's much nicer to just be able to kind of clean all of that up already with the Raven, rather than kind of letting it get out of hand. Whereas if creep is pushing in over here, it's kind of tough to use that Raven super effectively. So I kind of like the way that FanTaSy's done this. I feel like this was one of the good times to invest into a Raven full creep clearing and not really much of a reason. I mean, obviously you can still get some use out of it, and anti-armor missile on Roaches could be pretty nice to really help the Marines just kind of chew their way through that very easily. Lies in quite a bit of trouble here as FanTaSy. Still has these tanks. I mean, he's literally just left these tanks here. 15 kills between these two on the top. These two have been the deadly tanks. They just continue. I mean, again, look at this. Just killing Ravagers, interference. Matrixes on the Infestors. Didn't even think about that as an option, but it works. And these units are kind of backed into a corner. These minerals aren't lined out, so you are stuck. Infestors, Roaches, and Ravagers go down all alike. Well, on the other side of the map, FanTaSy is still just dropping a couple of men, a few Marines at a time, because it's one of those games where Bly just doesn't have a lot to defend with at the same time, and a few Marines just get the job done. FanTaSy has played really well against this aggression and just knew what he needed to do, knew the right ways to kind of get back into the game. I say get back into the game, but to extend his lead, really. He just knew the right ways to play it out, and I love the siege tanks. He knew the power of those. Leaving them here for such a long time has consistently caught Bly off guard, which obviously really does hurt, as we are going to be seeing the army of FanTaSy moving across for what could be our last few moments of game number 3 of this best of 5. Tanks sieging themselves up, some roaches and ravagers pressing down the ramp. More tanks trying to siege up as well. The infestation pit there on the natural expansion. Going to be in some trouble. Not sure that that really makes a difference. I mean, more infestors being made now. Not going to do too much. There's no pathogen glands, so there's no immediate fungal growth when infestors spawn. Blind knows that FanTaSy has this one in the bag. It out. This could be our last map of the day. If you want to see one more after this, you got to be cheering on our red Zerg in the top left-hand side. Bly, as he takes on the blue Terran in the bottom right. FanTaSy in game number 4 of this best of 5 series. Alright, so setting this up, getting this underway. See what's gonna happen. How are we all feeling in the chat? Hopefully all doing good. Bly is going to proxy hatch once again, so as we get into what could be our last game, Bly is really, he just bring a pretty aggressive front to this series, right? Every game, you know, from a Nidus in game 1 to the 2-base Spire in game 2 is also pretty aggressive. Aggression has been the name of the game here from Bly, and we are seeing that absolutely here with this proxy hatch in game number 4. Again, this is obviously a proxy hatch that doesn't have rich Vespene geysers to back it up or anything along those lines. Let's see when FanTaSy scouts, because at the moment is playing blind, not sending an SCV across the map, so it is going to be pretty limited in terms of what he can figure out, as we do have the Reaper on the way up in the main base, so getting that ready to roll. Just a very quick reminder, if this is our last game of the day, we're going to be switching into Borderlands 2 for an hour as part of a Twitch bounty pretty much straight after this game, or the next game, if the next game is the last one, if we get a game 5. So just a quick reminder that we are going to be doing that, so if we switch pretty quickly and you guys want to know what's going on, that's all. The Twitch bounty means we get paid for playing the game based on our viewership, so if you guys stick around and leave the stream open in the background, etc., it helps support the stream, it helps us get more money, and more money means more tournaments, more prize pool for the players. So do consider sticking around if you can, it really does help a lot as the Roach Roaring here. Coming up in the back of this main base, so I mean, FanTaSy sees the lack of an expansion. He's already come across here with the Reaper to check where that hatchery is, and he finds it, so FanTaSy knows what's going on here pretty much right away. I wonder if Bly loses a little bit of longevity in the game because of the lack of the, you know, the rich Vespene geysers. I feel like that kind of, well, the rich Vespene geysers allowed him to do was make so many Ravagers, it was kind of hard for FanTaSy to just push out. Whereas this time he'll have much fewer Ravagers, and because of that, it feels like it's probably going to be a bit easier for FanTaSy to hold. FanTaSy sees this so early, by the way. He's going to go double bunker on the low ground. So he's going to be able to keep his low ground CC as well. 2 Marines already, a Reaper as well in the bunker. No reactor. I mean, again, just a nice scout timing means that he gets this information very early on. And he is going to just continue to deal damage here. Nice morphing on the Ravagers, of course, means that they will get full heals. He pops out to kill off one of the Ravagers. SCV is repairing. This is nice. I mean, obviously the Ravagers continue to come in. Will we be able to get this one? It's kind of close, but it is just going to morph in. Problem is, once the Ravagers are here, the Ravagers actually take a lot of damage because they don't have that armor tag that the Roaches do. So they take a lot more damage off these Marines and the Reapers. So honestly, it's pretty brutal, and the Cocoon is the tankiest part of this. Chases down a Ravager, gets the Cocoon as well, and, well, I mean, we see the single bunker at the moment kind of holding on. The second bunker hasn't even finished yet. As we are going to be seeing Bly continue to be aggressive towards this ramp. Roach and Ravager are going to be pressing up there, and again, a few Marines continue to come in to push those Roaches back, and the Ravagers too being held at bay. 8 more SCVs have gone down, so I mean, that's okay though, because you're obviously on 2 proper bases here compared to Bly, who's on 2 bases on 2 different sides of the map. Well, Rav just continue to morph in, and they will again try and move up this ramp here, and just going to be seeing these SCVs continue to get into that repair game at the moment. Going to see the Cyclone coming forward, locking onto the Overlord. Overlord already locked onto here. Going to get pushed back a little bit as we're going to be seeing a couple more corrosive bars dropping down. SCVs dropping as well. Cyclone locks on. Roach and Ravagers pushed away there. Viking coming forwards into the center as well, and well, I mean, as that Overlord goes down, is this just game? Like, feels like Bly could be realistically typing out any moment here, because I guess he goes for like one more attack maybe. He's in trouble. He's in a lot of trouble. I mean, as FanTaSy has 2 bases ready to mine. He's got siege tank production starting. He's got a medevac. I guess the game could go on a while if Bly wants to stay in it, but it's kind of one of those scenarios where Bly has not done enough damage early on here. SCVs need to just back away from those couple of battles. I mean, finally gets rid of one bunker, but has the second bunker set to go. Now the siege tank there will also cover the ramp, so it's going to be even tougher for Bly to push up here successfully. Does keep that Roach alive. Good turnaround on the Ravagers to keep those at bay. Then that tank just hanging out on the high ground as we do see another Ravager coming up as well. Finishing up in a moment or two. Cyclone comes in, locks on towards the Ravager there. Another couple of shots, doing a pretty good job. And Ravager's moving up this ramp here. Corrosive Bowels dropping down. Bunker will fall, but again, that siege tank just does so much when it comes to picking off these units, and Bly will type out GG, and he'll be playing tomorrow in the lower bracket apparently, as FanTaSy will move